Chapter 24. After a month and on a day when no shots were being fired, Pastor Yu and I decided to risk the flight over the Verdant border. Once again, there was a river to cross, a fairly wild tributary of the Mekong. The Christian community's Secret Service had procured a boat for us, but I'd never actually traveled in a boat like this. It was the sort you could only get into in a theme park when wearing swimming trunks. Narrow and extremely unstable, it did not impress me with its reliability. I'd only recently come across the concept of a dugout in a missionary report from the Amazon. This must be one of those. A boatman and Pastor Yu settled on themselves on two diagonal planks. I had to crouch on the floor in the bow of the boat, but was at least able to hold on firmly to both sides of it. The current of the river made this a necessity. I was soon sitting in a continuous spray of water. I watched in fascination as the boatman moved the boat against the waves with his one paddle so skillfully that they could not overturn us. We were driven a long way downstream, but nevertheless slowly gained the far bank. The boatman had obviously judged it well, because a small town came into view on the other bank. Admittedly, as we neared the embankment, we could also see many uniformed men standing there. The Thai police in their brightly colored jackets and helmets. They had seen us coming some time ago and stared suspiciously over at us. Some took their guns from their holsters, but our boatman let us drift a bit further and steered in towards another group of men who were waving to us from behind a boathouse. I saw that some of them were Europeans. They were members of AVC, Action für Volket Christen und Nolentide, Action for Persecuted and Needy Christians, whom I was encountering here for the first time. The police ran along the bank in order to reach us at the same time as this group, but we got there a moment quicker, and one of the long-nosed ones sprang over to me, held out a red passport, and cried, "Isaac, take this! You're a German now!" The police checked our papers and were amazed by this Chinese German who had just arrived by boat and understood no German. But everything was in order. The passport had been issued by the German embassy and the photo showed, this time for real, Isaac with a smile on his face. Where the embassy got that picture of me from, I have never discovered. These police wanted to know more, however, so Pastor Yu recounted the story of my flight from China. The policeman found it hard to believe. It just wasn't possible to get out of China. Now, because of the war, you can't even get to the border, and the Burmese are shooting anything that moves. Not even a mouse can get over that border at the moment. The European leader of the group supplemented this with a word from Jesus. What is impossible with men is possible with God. Now we had to go by jeep to Bangkok. The driver explained to us that we would have to stop at many checkpoints. He had lost a lot of time on the journey to the border from Chiang Rai because the Thai government was very nervous of the ongoing war in the border region. Yet there was not even one roadblock, and after an 8-hour journey through marvelous mountain scenery and lush tropical vegetation, we arrived in Bangkok. At the German embassy, there were still a few things to sort out. Forms of every size, just as people had always said about the Germans. They were right. But they were friendly to me and kept on calling other officials who wanted to see the refugee from China. Of course, they were all speaking German, and my prior knowledge of that tongue was limited to Guten Morgen and Eins, zwei, drei, vier. My English wasn't good enough to hold a conversation in either, but Paul Hadaway, Christian and China expert, helped me to fill in all the forms, applications, declarations, and lists. Pastor Yu traveled immediately back from Chiang Rai to Burma. I'm so grateful to him for being so committed to me and thereby risking his life for me. May God bless him for it. At Bangkok Airport, I met my mum and Yiling again. They had an eventful border crossing themselves. Their companions had led them along country roads to Thailand, although roads was definitely not a fair description. For one whole night they had struggled through impenetrable jungle, which the companion had to hack a way through with his machete. They couldn't wear any shoes because the crunching noise they made on the ground might have given them away. My mother had survived this barefoot march relatively unscathed, but Yiling had sustained deep cuts. They had been through woods and mud baths and over sharp rocks. It must have been an incredibly stressful journey. My mother looked thin and drawn. Her eyes kept wanting to close. Yiling had been given new clothes that looked chic and European, but she was too exhausted and spoke barely a word. Her thickly bandaged feet were stuck in far too big shoes, and despite her chic new clothes, she looked like a clown.